In this lesson, you will learn how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula will work on any quadratic equation. The only thing is it's a little bit of a long process, but if you master it and memorize the formula, it will work on anything. You can see it on the right up here. It is x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a, where a is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the other number. So to start with, your equation must be in standard form and equal 0. So you want to write it to look like this. Ax squared would be first, then you have plus bx plus c equals 0. So you move everything to one side and make your equation equal 0, and it goes from x squared to bx to c. Now, if your x squared is negative, you want to move it to the other side. It just makes your work a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a few examples, and they might kind of be crowded on the screen, but I wanted to make sure that I cover all the different types of equations so that you can be confident and feel like you've mastered it at the end of this lesson. So for number 1, the 3 is on this side. It needs to go to the other side so that the equation equals 0. So you will begin by subtracting 3 on both sides. So now I have 3x squared plus 8x minus 3 equals 0. The next step, you always want to write out what is a, what is b, what is c. A is the number in front of x squared, so in this equation a equals 3. B is the number in front of x with the sign, so b is 8. And c is that last number, which would be our negative 3. Now I'm ready to plug everything into my equation. The equation says that x equals negative b. So I have a negative, and then I'm going to drop down my b, which is 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 8 again, squared, minus 4 times a is 3, and then times c, which is our negative 3. Okay, and then all of this is over 2a, which is 2 times 3. So that's just the first step. Go through and plug in a, b, and c into your equation. Next step will be to simplify. You always want to simplify any double negatives, which I don't see one. You would normally see that here. You want to simplify your denominator and then work out everything in under your square root. So I have x equals negative 8 plus or minus 8 times 8 is 64. I'm just going to go ahead and drop the rest down. Oh, missed my 4. And then this is all over 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay, next I'm going to simplify this part right here. So I have x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 3 is a positive 36. Still, all of this is over 6. Now I'm going to add 64 and 36. So I have x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus 36, which is 100. This is all over 6. Okay, I'm going to come up and continue this up here. And we're just going to have to work number 2 somewhere else. So I'll come up here, and then I have x equals negative 8 plus or minus square root of 100 is 10 over 6. At this point, you want to make 2 equations and split up your plus or minus. So I have x equals negative 8 plus or minus, oh, I'm sorry, I said we need to split that up. So let's just do plus 10 over 6, and your other equation will be x equals negative 8 minus 10 over 6. It doesn't matter which one you do first. Now I just need to work this out. So here I have x equals negative 8 plus 10 is 2 over 6. And then here I have x equals negative 8 minus 10 is negative 18 over 6. Simplify your fraction. You can divide both of these by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And this one, negative 8 over 6 is negative 3. So the solution to this equation is 1/3 and negative 3. So you see it's somewhat of a long process, but it got us the right answer. Okay, let's go to number 2. So for number 2, we have 5x squared equals 7. So first thing you want to do is move the 7 to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. So subtract 7 on both sides. We have 5x squared minus 7 equals 0. Now I'm ready to write out a, b, and c. A equals 5. B equals, there is no term with the x, so you're gonna say it equals 0, and then c equals negative 7. So now I'm ready to write my quadratic equation. Okay, so I have x equals negative b, which is 0, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 0 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is a negative 7. And this is all going to be over 2 times a, which is 5. So I have x equals 0 means nothing, so I really don't need that. So I just have my plus or minus. I need to go ahead and simplify under the square root. 0 squared, again, that's nothing. 0 times 0 is just 0, so I just need to go ahead and do this part. So negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 20 times negative 7 is 140. And this is over 10. Okay, now I need to get the square root of 140 simplified. That's not a perfect root, so I'm going to do it somewhere here on the side. So I have 140. What times what is 140? I know that 7 times 20. I can break down 20 into 5 times 4. It's a 5. And then 2 times 2. So circle your pairs. I have a pair of 2 that's going to come outside. So I have my 2 outside. And then what's inside is what's left here. That's 7 times 5, which is 35. So a square root of 140 is the same thing as saying 2 square root of 35. So this is going to equal plus or minus 2 square root of 35 over 10. As long as this is on the outside, I can simplify these two. I can divide both of them by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. You don't need to write the 1. You can just write square root of 35. 10 divided by 2 is 5. You cannot simplify the square root. Anything under the square root, you can't simplify these two as a fraction because it's blocked by the square root. Same thing here. I can't divide that because this is blocked under the square root. And this is as far as you can go. So you can leave your answer like this, or you can separate it and say x is going to be square root of 35 over 5 and negative square root of 35 over 5. Okay, so let's move on to number 3. For number 3, we could either move 2x and 3 to the left side, or you could move the negative x squared to the right side. Since it's negative, I'm going to go ahead and move this because I don't like to work with a negative a in the denominator. So I'm just going to put it in the front. So now I have 0 equals x squared. This is a positive, so positive 2x plus 3. Now I'm ready to say a, b, and c. So a is the number in front of your x squared, which is a 1. B is the number in front of x, which is 2. And c is 3. Plug those into your quadratic formula again. So we have x equals negative b. B is 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So 2 squared minus 4 times a. Again, I'm following this quadratic formula here up to the right. 4 times a is 1 and c is 3. And this is all over 2 times a, which is 1. Again, I don't have a double negative there, so I'm just going to go ahead and simplify the parentheses in the denominator. So I have -2 plus or minus, do your exponents first. 2 times 2 is 4, minus 4 times 1 times 3. And this is all going to be over 2 times 1, which is 2. Next, I'm going to continue simplifying. So I have x equals -2 plus or minus. So I have 4. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times 3 is -12. This is all over 2. So now I have x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 12 is -8 over 2. Now, the square root of a negative number is not real. So this is where you would stop. If you're in a more advanced algebra course, you could continue and do the imaginary numbers, which I do cover in my master course. But for the purpose of this course, we're just going to stop here. If you see that you have a negative square root, you're going to call this an empty set or say no real solution. So moving on to number 4. Since my x squared here is positive, I'm going to move these two. So subtract 4x and add 7. You always do the opposite signs. And I'm going to do the same thing to this side. So I have 3x squared minus 4x plus 7 equals 0. So I'm ready to say A, B, and C. A is 3, B is -4, and C is 7. Now plug them into your formula. So I have x equals -b, which is -4, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So -4 squared. It's so important that you put that in parentheses because of that negative. Minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 7. This is all over 2 times a, which is 3. Okay, now we're going to continue simplifying. So I have x equals -4 is just a +4, plus or minus, do your squared first. -4 times -4 is a +16. I'm just going to drop these down. It's important that you don't do many steps at once because you are likely to make a mistake. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm going to multiply these. So I have x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 16. So here I have -4 times 3 is -12. -12 times 7 is a -84. And this is all over 6. Okay. So here we're going to subtract 16 minus 84. Okay. I'm going to grab my calculator real quick and work that out. 16 minus 84 is -68. So I have x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of -68 over 6. Okay, so this one's just like that one. Again, I have another negative here. When you see you're ending up with a negative square root, you don't need to keep going. That is no real solution. The final one I want to do is number 5, which I have written out here. I'm going to go ahead and list out my a, b, and c, and then I'll come up here and start working it out. So a is the number in front of x squared, which is 5. B is -8, and c is 2. It's already in standard form. It already equals 0, so I didn't have to move that one. So I have x equals -b, so -8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's -8 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is 2, and this is all over 2 times a, which is 5. So again, you're going to simplify your double negative. So I have x equals -8, which is 8, plus or minus 8 times 8 is 64. Just dropping that down. And 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so now I have x equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 20 times 2 is a negative 40 over 10. So subtract that. I have x equals 8 plus or minus square root of 64 minus 40 is 24 over 10. I need to simplify 24 like we did the other one. So I'll do that here on the side. That's 6 times 4. Here I have 2 times 2, and then here I have 2 times 3. Here's my set of 2. So I have a 2, and these 2 are left, so that's 2 square root of 6. So I have x equals 8 plus or minus 2 square root of 6 over 10. Okay, if you have a number, a common factor between the 8, whatever's outside your square root, and the denominator, it has to be all three of them, you can simplify. So I see 2 goes into all of those, so I'm going to go ahead and divide them by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4 plus or minus. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You don't need to write a 1. It is understood to be there. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Since I still have a square root here, I know I can't simplify this anymore. If this was just a regular number without a square root, then I would break up the equation and solve it like we did number 1. So this is as far as you can go. This is your answer. You can leave it like this, or you can say 4 plus square root of 6 over 5, or 4 minus square root of 6 over 5.